Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop, or maybe not, as both Mike Washington and Charles Bishop are out on assignment. Welcome to episode 630 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab and radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports. For institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. In short, we just call it HBCU sports pedagogy. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host today, with none other than Brian Fulford and David Rhodes. As we get going with this unique episode on Thursday, February 27th, the last Thursday in February, Black History Month, for those that celebrate. I'm your host, but we're filming from our home studios in Signal Live, the KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home at Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THD Agency. THD Agency is a company that provides sporting, educational, and consulting and data analytics. With that being said, David, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. I mean, it's a great, tremendous day, and we'll probably get into what happened today in Aggie land. But pretty good day, pretty good week to say the least, man.
Woo, something happened in Aggie land. I didn't catch it yet. I'm gonna get the update right off the presser.
Right, that's what I'm wondering. I'm like, man, what's going on in Aggie land? I mean, David coming in hot and excited. I'm like, what happened in Aggie land?
It is what it is. He put it out there.
I'm gonna throw it out there for we're gonna go.
Hey, I'm doing well. I'm doing well, man. You know, all is good in the on the highest of Seven Hills in the land of the Rattlers.
Say, man, if Alabama didn't treat y'all too well this past weekend.
No,
I'm used to controlling the Alabamas, but
yeah,
hold on, not so fast.
Yeah, it was a very strange weekend. Not used to doing that much losing in Alabama. We normally don't do that much losing in Alabama. I think that'll be it for the year. I hope.
Weekend. I agree. David, what's the news in A&T North Kakalaki? Go ahead, stop holding that.
The North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University indoor track team on the men's side has won the CAA championship.
Okay, congratulations.
And
so that this week in the middle of the week?
The tournament, the championship started yesterday. Today was day 2. It was closeout day. All the finals were done today.
Nice.
So
congratulations. That's on the men's or women's side of both?
The men's side. The women, Hampton won the women's side. So shout out to the Lady Pirates. Oh, they won the women's CAA indoor championship today.
And they for sure HBCUs representing on both sides.
They won in dramatic fashion too. They were down 2.5 points against Elon going into the 4x400, and they pulled it out. They ended up winning by 2.5 points. So shout out to Hampton as well. The Aggies, they were behind coming into day 2, but they got 1, 2, 3 in a bunch of events, and they stretched their lead. At one point, they had over a 60-point lead. They ended up winning it by almost 40. So shout out to them.
Yeah, that's some good news. I like those kind of updates. You made me nervous. You made it sound like
no. I got those stories too. I got those stories too, but I pick my spots.
Well, trust me.
There was some conference churning about to happen, Doc.
No. They were breaking the news here. Like, everybody perked up and said, "Oh, okay, what you got?" Well, let me go to you, Brian. Since David jumped out there, what news would you like to share? What's hot on your mind that has your interest?
Let me find it, Doc. I mean, I'm all over the place because I'm doing a little double duty here. I did want to mention the some of the men's the men's basketball players of the week.
Certainly. Always good to give kudos for those players that had those players of the week.
Yeah. Let me kind of pull it up here. I was looking, I didn't quite see it in the notes, but I'm gonna go to it here quickly if it comes through on the SWAC.org website. I will say this though, Doc. First off, I got to give a shout out to the production by the SWAC Digital Network of the SWAC Indoor Track and Field Championships on Saturday and Sunday. Outstanding work by the production crew. Good friend of the program of the BCSM, Mo Carter. Outstanding job doing play-by-play. The coach who was with him, name escapes me right now, but great job of them two working together, and Stan Becton doing the on the track coverage and the interviews. Just overall, I was on a bus coming back from Atlanta on Sunday, and I was watching every minute on YouTube and the SWAC Digital Network. Enjoyed everything about it. I was able to keep up with my Rattlers, and just overall production, the times, just everything was great, first class. Kudos to the SWAC Digital Network. Always a big fan of when I see whether it be us or other entities doing great things in terms of production and making. That's why we do what we do, because we want to see more coverage, and they just did a great job. And so I guess that would be my lead in just congratulating not only the Texas Southern men and the Alabama State women for winning the team titles, and just everybody involved with SWAC Digital for their coverage of the Indoor Track and Field Championships. So first class job. Congratulations.
Well said. That's the business side and how much that resonates with fans that watch that. Whether you have a niche market or full market, and it extends, the higher quality, the more production you part in, the more you draw those folks that are attached to it and those outside of it. Shout out to Adam Spencer, talking about to the Lady Pirates, ODB. I see folks jumping in here giving some love on both sides of this with the Aggies and HBCU family representing, and certainly the Pirates. Lady getting it done. With all these views here, Lab always, PV always in the house. That's just what we do around the world. Chuck Hunt, giving him a shout out. Hadn't had a chance to shout him out in a while. He's always on top of it. Johnny Thornton. Keep them coming as we do that. With that, let me go back to you, David. What's on your mind? And we'll come back to Brian and let him give those accolades from the SWAC. You want to give some accolades maybe from the MEAC?
Let me see what I got here.
Or do you want to go in a different direction?
Well, one thing that you mentioned about the SWAC Digital Network, I want to give my conference some heat regarding our indoor track championship, because they were not streamed or televised, and I'm going to keep pushing to make this happen when it comes to the track programs. Like they do phenomenal in baseball, they do phenomenal in softball, basketball, and things of that sort. But it's time that we now need to start televising and streaming the track championship. So hopefully with A&T hosting it for outdoor this year, maybe they'll change their tune a little bit after they see how it's done. Now, that being said, shout out to the MEAC. Shout out to the MEAC. They got the women's basketball honors. Diamond Johnson was named the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference MEAC Player of the Week. And Howard freshman guard Sanaya King and Delaware State's forward Erica Huggins were named the co-rookies of the week, while Norfolk State senior forward Kiera Wheeler earned Defensive Player of the Week, respectively. Johnson averaged 22.7 rebounds and 4.5 steals and 2.5 assists in the 2-0 week for the Spartans, including their 92-44 win over Delaware State. My goodness. She recorded 31 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists for 2 steals against Coppin State. Johnson contributed 13 points, 9 rebounds, 7 steals, and 2 assists. King delivered an outstanding performance last week, averaging 24.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, 2 steals, and 1.5 assists per game, leading the Bison to a 2-0 week In a hard-fought win over Morgan State, she recorded 25 points, 2 steals, and 2 rebounds. Against Maryland Eastern Shore, King tallied 24 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals. Huggins posted a double-double in each of her matchups, averaging 18.5 points, 14 rebounds, 2 steals per game for the Hornets. In the loss at Norfolk State, she recorded 18 points, 13 rebounds, 2 steals, and 1 block. She matched that performance in the win over South Carolina State, finishing with 19 points, 15 rebounds, 2 steals, and 1 assist. And Wheeler averaged 23 points, 7.5 rebounds, 3 blocks, 1.5 steals across 2 wins for the Spartans. She posted a season-high 28 points, 7 rebounds, 2 blocks, and 1 steal over Coppin State. Wheeler also added 18 points and 8 rebounds, 4 blocks, and 2 steals in the victory over Delaware State. And I'm going to say this about the Norfolk State women. They have been insanely dominant in the MEAC, like insanely dominant. So I'm pushing for a 12 seed. I'm pushing.
Wow.
I want a 12 seed. And the reason why I want a 12 seed, it increases their odds of getting out of the first round. So I want a 12 seed. I know the committee is going to probably give them a 14 seed, but maybe the other conferences will help them out a bit, and they can get this 12 seed. Because if they can get a 12 seed, I think they're going to surprise some folks in this tournament. So shout out to Norfolk State Lady Spartans.
But Dave, guess what? Guess what has to happen first? Unfortunately, Norfolk State has to win the tournament.
I don't think they should not have a problem with this.
Well, look, anything can happen. though. It's March.
They're not going to get an at-large bid.
The folks who want March Madness, guess what? Ooh, here comes the small team.
There's this thing called March Madness, and then there's some things that are called established. And like I haven't seen anything from the closest team in the MEAC that came close to beating these young ladies was Morgan, their first round at home and not on the road. And now they're going to be at the Scope. They're going to pretty much have home field advantage. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, that would be the shocker of the year if Norfolk State women lose a game. I mean, their margin of victory has been like 20 plus. The games haven't even
almost 30 points a game.
So I'm not even sure. You know, there's talk, and we try to say, all right, how can this team get up and beat this team? I'm not sure how you can do it other than like just insane 70% shooting from the 3.
How did Jackson State lose the other year when they stubbed their toe in the semifinals?
They were not as dominant against.
No, they weren't.
They had a couple of games where they don't, but they had some competitive games.
Like A&T was close against them.
Had competitive game. The closest team in record is Howard, but even that game they played against them, they beat them up. Howard just has 1 loss. But no, it's not like that.
Morgan was the closest, and Norfolk had their absolute worst game of the year, and they still won by they won by single digits, right? So it's
Well, Brian, so we can get into our next break. Go ahead and give the updates this way.
Yeah, and you buried the lead there, Dave. Norfolk State's women 26 consecutive home games, which is the longest active streak in NCAA Division I women's basketball. Of course, now that South Carolina lost their streak, now Norfolk State sits in the lead. So, shout out to them. Okay, here's the SWAC players of the week. Over on the women's side, you had Kalia Walker as the player of the week from Alabama A&M. Portland Loudermill was the impact player of the week from Texas Southern. And Diarra Allen was the newcomer of the week from UAPB. Walker averaged an impressive 19 points per game this past week for Alabama A&M during games against Florida A&M and Bethune-Cookman. I think she even hit the game-winning 3, or what would end up being the go-ahead 3 in that contest against FAMU. She shot 48% from the field, ranking first on her team in points and field goal percentage. Loudermill, who was the impact player of the week, key contributor this past weekend for Texas Southern. She averaged a team-leading 19 points per game while shooting 56% from the field. I mean, doggone. I mean, we're talking apples and more apples in terms of who the player of the week and impact player of the week is. Newcomer of the week even did better. Allen averaged 20 points per game this past weekend for UAPB as the Lady Lions played road games against Texas Southern and Prairie View. Shout out to the voters for even figuring out how you decide who gets what award, given that you had a 19, 19, and 20. So shout out to the voters for figuring that out. Over on the men's side, The player of the week, FAMU, Sterling Young. And then the impact player of the week was Jackson State, Shannon Grant. And the newcomer of the week was Bethune-Cookman's Trey Thomas. Young averaged a league-leading 27 points per game this past weekend for FAMU on the road against State and Alabama A&M. Even though those were in losing efforts, he also won Player of the Week, little asterisk here, when the last time the Rattlers played Alabama State and A&M. So talk about loving playing against Alabama A&M and Alabama State, Sterling Young. The impact player of the week, Grant, had a career day as he finished with a career-high 25 points on 11 of 11 shooting from the field and 3 of 3 from the line. That's what we call a perfect day, ladies and gentlemen, going to work and just being great. He did that against Alcorn State in the one game that Jackson State had to play this weekend. And then Thomas of Bethune-Cookman takes the award after a pair of wins at Alabama A&M and Alabama State, in which he scored 35 points, 3 assists, and 2 steals for the Wildcats. So look at that, man. Everybody has a good day in Alabama, except for us who didn't get a win. I mean, come on now.
You'll be all right. You'll be all right. You'll be all right. Look, no, y'all don't even see y'all being this good.
Spoiled after winning all them games in a row. 2 out of 6.
We did. We dropped from 2 to 6. 2 to 6 in the standings. That's how tight it is on the men's level. 2 losses can mean can mean all the difference in where your seeding is.
How many teams get a bye in the SWAC tournament now that there's 10 teams? 2, right?
2
teams? Okay.
Well, they play in the opening round, essentially. We'll put it.
Well, 6 don't get a play in the first round, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Got it.
So 2 teams essentially get those byes, if you want, in terms of what they're looking, and the teams are playing the lineup against them. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like as we get closer to the finish line. Let's take our first break and come back on the other side. I didn't have you all on Tuesday, so we won't put up the rankings, but what I want to do is discuss the rankings with you all and see your thoughts of where we are with these rankings as we get into some more HBCU sports talk from the basketball perspective. With that, we'll be right back after our first break.
It's like a loot machine. All around town, people trying to get down. It's like a loot machine.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Sonia from She Say Sports. Make sure to check us out every Friday morning at 9 a.m. on Black College Sports Network, YouTube, and Linktree. And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a lot, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill inside HBCU Sports Lab with Professor Rose, Professor Fulford, giving your thoughts on this segment. We're going to get into the major division. We hadn't done mid-major division in basketball in a year. Major division of basketball on the women's side. Let's look at the top 5. Dropping out this week is Jackson State. Some would see it as an upset. They lost to Alcorn State, their rivalry game, but if you know anything about rivalries, that happens. And you talk about a team that has beaten 2 of the top teams. It's Alcorn State, which they have defeated Southern as well as Jackson now. And then guess who they have coming into town? It's Texas Southern. So they get the chance to make the trifecta, which will be fascinating to see how that goes. But on other news, they did drop out this week. They still are receiving votes at the top. You have Alabama A&M, Coppin State Eagles, and Grambling State Tigers. Jackson State is at 11-3, Alabama A&M at 12-3, Coppin State Eagles at 7-4, and Grambling State Tigers at 8-6. Those are the teams in the conference perspectives that have winning records, essentially, when you bottom it out. Then you get into the top five. You got Howard Vice, we talked a little bit about earlier. They're at 10-1 in the conference play. They are one game out, so they can set up a winner-take-all, if you would, in terms of at least a share of the conference championship at the end of the season if they just keep winning, which will really set up things for the tournament, talking about Brian and David's comments earlier in the first segment. They were not ranked, 56 points. Texas Southern, if you would, 12-2, 62 points. They fall a spot from 3 last week to 4. Number 3 is North Carolina Aggies. They climbed 2 spots. David is still not that's still not good enough for David. One first place vote, 63. And number 2 is Southern Jaguars, 12-2, first place vote, 73 points. And 2 and Norfolk State Spartans running away with it while they're just undefeated 11-0, 6 first place votes. Perfect as we look at the top 5 and read number 8, which is the Norfolk State Spartans, not surprising anybody. But with that being said, Brian, what are your thoughts on the top 5 before I let David come in and really crush it, as he always will? I'm just shocked. I'm shocked that there are voters out there, that are voting for someone other than Norfolk State. I just, I know the Aggies are having a good season. That's I know Southern is having a good season. By the way, Southern's losing to FAMU right now, 28-24. Just thought I'd share that. Look, Norfolk State is the standard right now. They are the dominant team in win. And look, I really wouldn't you love to see, Norfolk State and A&T and Southern and these teams get a chance to play each other at the end of the year and see who could really come home. But
you might get that chance indirectly.
But hey, if it indirectly, however it may come, we'll take it. But I get those are the 3 teams. The standard is the standard for those 3 teams. I am a little surprised that Howard though is number 5. Maybe that's a product of being the second best team in the MEAC. And is the separation between Norfolk State and Howard as wide as David's shaking his head yes. So okay. All right. Yes. I would agree with David on this. And I'm going to say David, since Brian kind of kindly gave up the floor with that being said, I'm going to go with you and get your thoughts on the top 5, and then we can chime in while we see the difference, because I'm in agreement with you between Norfolk State and Howard.
I understand why Brian thinks first place votes aren't deserved, but I think I could argue A&T and I could argue Southern getting 1. I still think A&T should be number 2. When you talk about strength of schedule and the conference and things of that sort, I think the thing that kills A&T from ever getting that 1 spot is because of that early game against Norfolk, and they played well. One of their more closer games, believe it or not, all season. If you just look what's been going on in the MEAC. But overall, I can't argue with Norfolk being number 1. But the gap between Norfolk and Howard, I know Erica does not hate it when I say it. It's that wide. It is that wide because Norfolk is just ahead of the pack from everybody else in that conference right now. And truth be told, the team that I thought that would give them the biggest threat is not even in your top 5, and that's Coppin State. And they just haven't, and they haven't shown it in the 2 opportunities that they had. Because I think Norfolk beat them over 20 both times. So, I think it's going to be fascinating. I know the Black College Invitational Championship that is being ran in Charlotte. I'm rooting for Coppin to get in there because I think Coppin is going to surprise folks. I expect Norfolk to make the NCAA tournament. I'm hoping that the Aggies make it to the NCAA tournament as well, winning in the CAA. Right now, you guys talked about it on Tuesday. It seems that right now A&T will be playing Texas Southern. I have a feeling that if A&T runs through the tournament, they'll probably get out of the 16 seed or get out of the playing game at least. Even I don't know. I'm kind of mixed about that because they'll end up with a they'll end up with number 2 or number 3 in the country, and I feel a way about that. But I think they'll vote themselves out of it if they can run through the tournament.
You know, if Mike was here, he loves to give you those data analytics, and he'll give you some in terms of offensive, defensive stats. I'm just going to simplify it in terms of scores since you asked that question. We got Norfolk that defeated Howard 69-53. When you talk about Dave giving you some updates on Coppin State, the first matchup in both of those games between Howard and Coppin State were at home for Norfolk State. But the Coppin score was 82-66. The second game where they went on the road, they defeated them 76-54. That 22 points that Dave was referring to. So fascinating when you look at that. That Norfolk State A&T matchup where A&T was at home. Norfolk State went on the road for that victory. To that point. It was a 9-point win, 68-59, just to give you some updates in terms of what Norfolk is doing. So fascinating when you talk about, obviously, a lot of people really looked up when they saw Norfolk get that win over SEC member Missouri, 57-54. And if that wasn't well enough, they come back in December and get the win over Auburn, 63-57. So that is stuck in a lot of people's heads, even though they were running it off in terms of non-conference play. They defeat William and Mary there in Virginia, 70-49. They get a win over Division. Both of those, that's a Division I win. Another Division I win on Longwood, 71-62. Told you about the Missouri Division I win. They have a win over Division I Hampton, 62-53. They get a Division I win on Radford, 71-65. They get the Division I win over UNC Wilmington, 71-52. In terms of those matchups, they get a Division I win over Wyoming. Over Wyoming, 56-47. So that just gives you some indication of what they're doing. That was all in November, and they back it up with the Division I win over St. Louis, 75-66. Told you about the A&T win, and then they get Drexel as well. Division I win, 68-56. So name all those Division I wins, which goes to David's point. While we're talking about where they're going to be ranked in terms of the seeding, it's going to be fascinating to see what that looks like. So we got two teams that can find a way to get it done, that arguably should find a way to slip out of that 16 seed, which is going to be fascinating to see. To the point, can Norfolk State get a 12 seed? I think that's pretty aggressive. Things have to work in their favor. Yep. It's fascinating to watch to see, can they at least get that 14 seed, maybe even a 13 seed kind of slide down there. So it'll be fascinating as things get going. With that, let's take our second break. We'll come back on the other side and talk about the men. See what these two gentlemen think about with the top five as we keep it going along. Last segment, we'll get in a little bit of talk about these tournaments. This week, CIAA, as we're starting to get to that Final Four, where things really get good. And then we're shaping up for SIAC next weekend. Also, some bit of the NIA programs getting down, so we'll maybe get a sneak in those or two, particularly the HBCU AC, as it's getting going this weekend in Alabama. With that being said, we'll be right back after this break.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and Instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
When it comes to professional learning, teachers deserve better. From the leader in online learning, Stride brings you the Stride Professional Development Center, an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that gives teachers choice and flexibility, allowing them to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. It's time you take charge of your learning. Visit us today to get started.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Let's get into the men's side in terms of the top five. I'll give you those teams on the outside, and then we'll post the top five at the very end, as we did with the women. Just so you see, they're dropping out this week was Florida A&M Rattlers. Receiving votes, Texas Southern Tigers are in the mix at 10-5 as FAMU drops out with 9-6. Alcorn State Braves right there in the thick of things at 8-6. Howard Bison at 7-4. They're kind of falling on hard times of late. We'll see what that means as they prepare to close out the season and get in the tournament play from a conference perspective. Alabama State Hornets at 9-6. They had a big weekend. Coach Pettaway, give him a shout out as he talked a little bit about he thought Alabama State would be at a chance to get FAMU. So I guess he showed out a little bit in terms of what he knows about basketball, the Hall of Famer there. Florida A&M Rattlers sit at 9-6. Let's look in the top five where it really gets fun. Number 5, Bethune-Cookman Wildcats. Really intriguing about this team for me. They're 10-5. They jump in the top 5 at number 5, 53 points. This is a team that lost 2 straight at home. But everybody that has followed them understands the fact that they have a lot of injuries, but then they find a way to go on the road and get 2 big-time victories in Alabama. Fascinating, particularly when Rattlers, the Alabama teams, were able to get wins over the Rattlers. Fascinating conference race going down the stretch. Number 4, South Carolina State Bulldogs, 8-3, 69 points. They were ranked 5, so they move up a slot. Probably one of the hottest teams out there playing right now. So I'm fascinated in what that looks like. At number 3, Jackson State Tigers at 10-4, 88 points. At number 4, a lot of talk a little early in the season, then Jackson State kind of went away. But they're getting it done. They're back in the mix. So I'm fascinated to see a team that is playing this well that maybe many people are not quite talking about them like that. We'll see what these gentlemen think about that. And number 2, Norfolk State Spartans 10-1, 5 first place votes, 103 points. And number 2, Spartans used to be at the top of the ranking, whether it's 1, 2, 3 spot, usually oftentimes 1, certainly, sometimes 2, but they're 2 here, playing really good basketball in terms of the conference race, got a 2-game lead for most teams. But this is not what you think about your Norfolk State Spartans. I would argue that Coach has had his greatest coaching year, if you would, in terms of what he's getting out of his team. He's won some really close games. The one he lost was a tough one at the end, but he's finding a way to get this team over the hump, and they're getting the victories. Number 1 is Southern Jaguars at 13-1, 6 first place votes, 104 points. Number 1, Southern Jaguars kind of made the move last year, and then they had a swoon at the end of the year, which they've done in previous years, but not this year. This team is deep, and they just really play tenacity in terms of what they do on the defensive side of the ball. But they, at the end of the day, just find a way to get buckets and get wins and key defensive stops. With that being said, I'm going to start with you, David. What are your thoughts on the men's side of the top 5?
I think Norfolk should be numero uno. That's one thing. But the other piece is, this is going to probably take you back a little bit. There's a team in the CAA that has won 5 consecutive games, including being the team that's a top 120 team on the net, who's second in that conference, and that is the Hampton Pirates. Wow. They are 8-8 in conference. They're 16-13 overall. I could argue they could probably beat most of the teams in this top 5. I think they're playing their best basketball right now. I anticipate that they're going to be very dangerous in the CAA tournament once it begins. They're the 8th seed now. They have a legitimate shot to get into the top 6 in the conference and potentially get a bye. So I would have. Yeah, yep.
Go ahead and close that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. So I think Hampton needs to be considered for the top 5 with regards to that. Off that alone, I think they started slow, but I think right now they're probably, I could argue, they're one of the hottest teams in HBCU basketball right now.
That's a lot of losses being the top 5. I will give you this.
I know.
I give you this though. To your point, they beat one of the teams in the top 10, so maybe they should at least be in consideration of 10. Interesting in terms of that. I would be fascinated to see what is your arguments if you're saying that about Hampton. What about Tennessee State?
I could argue Tennessee State as well.
Okay. So
I could argue them as well. I can argue them both. I know. Shout out to Liv. Liv has both of them in her top 5. So I could argue for both of them. And so, but I think Hampton, I know they're in the CAA and it's tough in that. It's a pretty rough conference from that regard. But I think they've been playing their best basketball. They just took out UNCW, who's like 115 in the net right now, ranked 115 in the net, could legitimately not be like a 16 seed into the NCAA tournament. So if they can win the tournament, of course, the CAA tournament.
You talked about the HBCU Invitational in Charlotte. Those are 2 teams, unless they get hot and run through their tournament and obviously get the automatic bid, and therefore qualify for the NCAA tournament. Their best bet is to go for the HBCU. No NIT. Obviously, you have maybe CBI, CIT out there, but why not the HBCU invitation? That will be the opportunity for them, to your point, to make that statement. They can make a run in that tournament. That is going to make some question marks in terms of what that top 5 looks at. So I'm interested to see if they decide to give that a go. With that being said, Brian, where do you lean in the top 5, and what are you saying in terms of David's argument, with Tennessee State and Hampton? And Sneaker Talk laughs at you when you enter Tennessee State. That's not a ringing endorsement.
No, he said it should definitely be at the top. He concurs.
Go ahead, Brian.
I'm not really, South Carolina State being in the top 5 is interesting. I just think right now the power players are definitely in the SWAC right now. Southern, Jackson State, Bethune. I'm very disappointed in the voters, though. I mean, 2 losses in Alabama, and y'all voters decide to drop us to 10th. Come on now, we were like 3, and then you drop us to 10. See, that's just the lack of respect. Okay.
And you know what, Brian? To piggyback on the Hampton run. Them boys won 5 straight, and they can't even get any top 10 love. So I don't want to hear nothing about you.
Okay.
All right, they won 5 straight, 2 straight weekends of wins.
Look,
for the Pirates.
I appreciate you putting me on. I'm gonna have to look. When's the next Hampton game? I'm gonna circle them on my radar as I look for some action in these upcoming days.
They got some tough. They got 2 tough on the close season this weekend. They got Drexel Thursday on the road, and they got Townsend, who's top of the conference, on Saturday to close out the season.
All right, well, hot teams, but what I like is Southern right now. Hold on, who's Adam Spencer said we're playing right now?
Yeah, Hampton's playing right now. They are playing right. It is Thursday. My days are such a mess right now. They're playing Drexel right now.
Okay, all right. So maybe there's some in-game action I can look for. But anyway, and back to Southern though. Southern leading the conference right now, not only is leading the SWAC in offense and offensive production, offense and defensive points allowed. So right now, look, they are as solid of a team as the SWAC has, but I'm not going to tell you they're unbeatable, and because of the fact that I think the top 7 teams in the SWAC, this is why the SWAC tournament is going to be outstanding. The only thing that can blow this up is that if the 9 or 10 seed, the teams who last year shouldn't have been, wouldn't have been, but somehow the 9 or 10 end up, I'm not even going to use an analogy that I was about to use, but anyway, they could ruin it. They can mess up the quarterfinals.
That is Brian. That is the art of chaos.
Oh, stop.
As somebody that's in a conference currently where all 14 teams get in, all 14 get A&T is going to get in this tournament. As bad as they are, although they've won 3 of the last 4, as bad as they have been all year, they're going to be in the tournament. And they're playing their best ball at the best time.
If you only had 4 legit good teams in your conference, okay, yes, root for chaos. But you literally have 7 legitimate squads that could very well come into conference play with anywhere from 11 to 12 conference wins. That's outstanding.
I agree, but you know what that also tells me? You know what it also tells me?
What's that?
They better not lose the 9 or 10.
Well,
they better not lose the 9 or 10.
You're sure you better not. But as I said, I will also, as much as I understand basketball enough that it's all about matchups.
I agree.
I understand that the team that makes the most mistakes is the team that usually loses, and all it takes is a bad day of some extra grease on the fingertips, and all of a sudden you can't control the ball. You start throwing it all over the court. You're missing shots. Next minute, you know, you're at home. You're at home on the couch with me, you, and Dr. Cavil. We all sitting at home. So I'm just saying, you know, give me the best teams when you have what I think you're going to get in the SWAC tournament this year. Yeah. Give me the best playing the best.
I like it. To a lot of your points, you had South Carolina State that had the loss to Bethune-Cookman, but they actually have the win over Alabama A&M. So it's going to be interesting in terms of as it goes down the tournament. David, what have you heard about the HBCU Invitational Basketball Tournament? How many teams are they looking to bring in at the men's Division I level? I know they're doing all the Division II and Division I men and women.
Yep. So four teams each from what I understand. So they're going to do like a tournament. So it's for the folks.
Think about that ranking with those teams, at least that are playing good basketball. You could have a high quality tournament on the men's side.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously you're going to get somebody out of the SWAC win that tournament, which means they're going to be hot. But you think about teams that do, you know, that are not fortunate to win the championship. Let's just talk about them all. That's Southern, Jackson State, FAMU, Bethune-Cookman, Alabama A&M, Alabama State. Some teams that are playing really well in terms that could get that bid. And that's not to throw in, obviously, Hampton or Tennessee State, that if they can get hot and get a couple of wins and not win their tournament, then you go to the MEAC, bringing in a Howard. What is that going to look at for those teams where those 4 teams? That could be an interesting tournament with some quality teams that you can get in there. So fascinating. And then on the women's side, I think it's even deeper.
Oh, yeah.
Quality teams that you can get and playing that between the 2 HBCU conferences and the independent. So I'm fascinated to see what that may look like. A little nervous on the Division II side, where you tend to get multiple teams that get bids to those tournaments. So I'm interested to see what they're able to make of those teams that get in on that side. With that being said, talking about the mid-major division, let's flip the script, take our last break. We'll come back on the side and give you some updates in terms of what's going on in the CIAA tournament and where teams finished in the SIAC. With that, we'll take a last break and come back on the other side.
Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time-consuming. That's why when it comes to your auto, home, and life insurance needs, make things simple and trust the experts at Allstate. They will help you get the coverage that fits your needs while helping you bundle your life, home, and auto policies. Bundling saves you money, sure, but it also saves you time, so you can enjoy the things that matter most even more. Contact me, Tammy Haynes, your local agent, for a free personalized insurance quote. Allstate, are you in good hands?
There's a shot to right. It could be. Right field, grand slam! What a shot! That's how you get hot, young fella.
Thank you, guys, for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do, and all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Are you you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
The Cavil Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cavil.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bills with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. I want to give you some updates with the women's side of the bracket for the CIAA. Big time games being played. Virginia State has done what they're supposed to do as they clinched a spot in the semifinals. They were the #1 seed out of the North. They had a win over Lincoln to make sure they got into the semifinals. And then in regards to the other side of the bracket, you have #2 Virginia Union doing what they're supposed to do with the win over Claflin, such that they have moved into the semifinals. They will face up against Fayetteville State, who's the #1 seed out of the South. They had a victory over Bluefield State the other night, and so that side of the winner bracket is set. Fayetteville, the #1 team out of the South, faces the #2 team out of the North, Virginia Union. That is a 6 p.m. Game there in Baltimore. We're waiting for the final 4 seed, which will be a matchup featuring #3 out of the North, Bowie State, versus #2 out of the South, Livingstone. And the winner will face Virginia State, and that game will be at 12 o'clock tomorrow in the semifinals. Let's look at the men in terms of what's going on there. Virginia State on the men's side did what they were supposed to do with the victory over Bowie State that came in as the 5 seed out of the North. So they play at 2 o'clock tomorrow. They clinch a spot. Much like we talked in the women's bracket, we'll go down here. The #1 seed Fayetteville State got it done against Virginia Union. So they play at 8 o'clock tomorrow as they have clinched a spot in the semifinals. And they face off #2 out of the North, Bluefield State, after Bluefield State defeated Johnson C. Smith. So a lot of things are going to form thus far. As you can see in the CIAA, the final spot for that Final Four, if you would, in the CIAA for the semifinals will be the winner out of #2 out of the South, Claflin, versus #3 out of North Lincoln, Pennsylvania. It's fascinating to see what that looks like. So, David, any thoughts in the CIAA in terms of not really any upsets, which tends to happen? Everything is kind of going to chalk. Do you see that remaining as we get to a championship game?
Lincoln on the men's side, I would love to see them get back to the finals again. See if they can go and repeat this thing. I know Virginia State's been rolling pretty much from the most of the season, so it'll be fascinating to see if Lincoln can pull it off and beat Claflin. That'll end the chalk, right? That'll be a 3-over-2, and then move on and potentially head to the finals.
Brian, your thoughts?
You said it. My thoughts were just the fact that it was so chalky right now.
Man.
And so I did manage to pull up the graphics there for the folks at home who were curious and wanted to see what that looked like. What I love about the formatting for the CIAA is that the number one seeds do not have to play 3 consecutive days, right? If you can clear the opening, and they call it the opening round, but I have a feeling it's supposed to be called the quarterfinals, because I guess at that point on day 2, that really is the start of the quarterfinals. You win that game if you're the 1 seed, you get a bye. I shouldn't say bye. You get a rest day. That's a better way of saying it. You get a rest day before you have to play in the semifinals, which is a big advantage, I think, versus you having to go into playing 3 straight days from the quarterfinals. I mean, it's a slight rest advantage, but I still think it is significant. I'm just surprised. I just thought, the CIAA in the past couple of years, it's always been somebody knocking off a 1 or a 2 seed in the opening round, and you end up with a 3 seed as your champion or a 2 seed. But it looks pretty chalky so far.
I'll say this, Brian, we talk about the fact that you don't have to play the 3 consecutive days, but sometimes that could be a deterrence. Hence why you say you see the 3 seed win it all, right? That's true. Sometimes the rest ain't always, it all depends on the team and the focus of the team in regards to whether or not that rest helps or not. But it does matter, especially if you got injuries, that could help for sure. But if you got folks with nagging injuries and things of that sort. But
yeah, I agree with you on those points. It's so interesting when you're talking about teams of what that looks like. Certain teams, the rest, little nagging injuries, it could work. If they're feeling good, they want to play. They're hot. They're shooting well. They want to keep it in rhythm. Other times, so that's just the magic to me. I don't know if there's really a perfect thing that works. I do like the fact that tournaments that try to give the advantage to the team that won the regular season. For nothing else, it shows the value of the regular season. So I think I'm with you on that part of it, Brian. But it's from that reason versus trying to make things go talk. I just think that doesn't work. With that being said, shout out to Miles and Clark Atlanta. Guess what? We're saying shout out in terms of both men's and women as they do the double dip and get it done. It's Clark Atlanta men's and women's win the East Division and will have the number 1 seed out of the East, as Miles men's and women's win the number 1 seed out of the West. In terms of the seeding, the East is the deeper team, so it'll be interesting to see who avoids whom in terms of getting the bracketology early in that matchup. I think that kind of matters. Obviously, the East went down to the stretch literally in terms of who ended up with that number 1 seed, but Miles has dominated. We'll get a chance to kind of see in those particular matchups which way will it go. As we come to a close, I did want to give out the NIAs, particularly the HBCU, at least the seeding in terms of those brackets. That tournament is in Tuscaloosa, home of Stillman that will be hosting it. And they come in with the number 1 seed, both on the men's and women's side. We'll see how much that helps them about being able to play at home for that tournament. The number 2 seed on the women's side is Dillard, while the number 2 seed on the men's side is Tougaloo. So it's fascinating to kind of see how those matchups will go back and forth. And I look forward to getting an eye on that tournament as it kicks off today with those early round games, with the championship game being played on Sunday, which is unique from the Division II perspective, where you see a lot of those championship games on Saturday. With that being said, any final thoughts as we get ready to close? I'll go with you first, David, and then come to you, Brian.
Go Aggies.
You talking about keep it simple, Brian?
I'm keeping it simple.
Well, right. I'm scoreboard watching. I'm loving what I'm seeing from my Lady Rattlers, up 47-39 over Southern right now, heading in the third quarter. But still a lot of basketball to play, man. These women's basketball games can turn left. They can turn sideways real quick on you. So looking forward to the last 2 weekends of the SWAC. And hey, guess what, guys? March is around the corner. Love it. Love it.
Perfect statement there when you talk about March Madness. It literally is around the corner. By the time you get through your weekend, it will be officially March, and the madness will be upon us. Looking for some finishing stretches at the Division I level in terms of conference play before tournaments get started. Obviously, we're looking to see who gets to hold up the trophy, if you would, out of the CIAA and the HBCU AC. Obviously, love for those teams, HBCU programs in the Red River Athletic Conference, particularly Xavier, to see what they're going to get done, both for men's and women's side. In the Sooner Athletic Conference, to see what Langston is going to be able to get done, both on the men's and women's side, as they played really solid regular season. And then we dip down to Florida when we talk about the Sun Conference with both men's and women's, particularly the women's program over there, in terms of what they will get done in their tournament, as many of those teams are looking forward, whether they win the tournament or not, about getting bids to the NIA tournament. So it'll be fascinating to kind of see what that looks like when you talk about Florida Memorial, Xavier, and Langston. Again, all of those on the men's and women's side, and see what happens coming out of the HBCU AC. Can Talladega, Dillard get it done in terms of those respective conferences, as well as Stillman, who's representing on both sides. With that being said, let's call it a show. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. Thanks for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Again, I want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. I want to give a shout out to Brian Fulford, David Rose for joining me today. A shout out to Roy Evans in the background, leading us with the production. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. That's DrKenyattaCavil. That's on Facebook and Instagram. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab on Instagram, Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1, as well as HBCU Sports Lab Inside on Facebook and YouTube. Dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Brian?
Of course.
David?
Lecture.
Dismiss.